Hello and welcome to the Airline Weekly Lounge. I'm Gordon Smith. While Jay and I are away for the holidays, we're bringing you two special episodes with extended interviews from our recent Skift Aviation Forum held in Fort Worth, Texas. In this first program, I'm in conversation with JetBlue CEO Joanna Geraghty. In this lively on-stage interview, Geraghty explains why she believes the deck is stacked against smaller carriers in the US airline industry and why she thinks 2026 will be a better year. Enjoy. Joanna, welcome to the Skift Aviation Forum.
Nice to be here.
It wasn't guaranteed that you were going to be here. You were on a plane barely 2 hours ago.
One of the competitors. The benefit of being small is you fly everybody else and get to do a little market research yourself.
Competitor analysis.
Feel really good about the JetBlue product after this morning. But no Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi, okay. DFW did its job, though, got you through the airport nice and smooth.
That all worked very well, yeah.
We'll talk strategy in just a moment, but let's begin with the big story from the past week. On Friday, we had that global safety alert affecting the A320 family. EASA stemmed that back to a JetBlue A320 on October 30th.
Yep.
I imagine you and the team have had better Friday nights.
Yeah, I mean, this month has been tough, I think, for the industry, particularly tough for JetBlue. My team, I just want to make a shout out for them, what they have managed between a hurricane in Jamaica, the government shutdown, and then the Airbus airworthiness directive. It's definitely been a dynamic and challenging environment to operate in. And I think they did as well as anybody could expect to navigate that. So the Airbus issue, obviously, safety first. And when a regulator, let alone your manufacturer, tells you that you need to roll back a piece of software because they see an anomaly, obviously, we all take that extremely seriously. JetBlue happened to be a bit more impacted than others because we had rolled out this version of the software, which was actually part of Airbus's safety standard program, ironically, across more of our fleet. We actually were very proactive in rolling it out. And we also rolled it out across a portion of the fleet that had ELACs, these flight boxes that could not be reprogrammed on board the aircraft. And so that's why we had a bit longer of a recovery because we had to actually replace the boxes. And when you have a worldwide airworthiness directive that goes out like that, suddenly everybody wants the boxes at once. And so it took us a little longer because we had more aircraft impacted and had a version of the box that needed to be done off wing. So, but again, happy we made it through it. And I think tried to minimize customer disruptions on a really important weekend as much as we could.
For sure. Was there any frustration that you were the good student, you did your homework, you got it in early, and you were almost punished for it?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we try to make the right decisions around what modules to implement, and I think we're never going to regret the decision. It has a set of flight envelope protections. That was what the version that we had on our aircraft had to be the version that was on that we had to remove. So it removed some flight envelope protections when we rolled it back. But it's absolutely the right decision. I'm sure Airbus will sort it out and figure out what the right path is moving forward. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating. But we're JetBlue. We've had a lot of knocks and punches over the past couple of years, and so we'll just add this to the list and keep powering through.
It's fascinating that here we are the week after Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving it wasn't even mentioned in your first opening statement. It was the hurricane, it was the shutdown, it was the A320.
Yeah.
Speaking in DC last month, you called for a, quote, level playing field. That term means different things to different people. I'm sure different people in this room have got a different idea of what level playing field means. What does it mean to you and Team JetBlue?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it means to us is the opportunity to actually effectively compete and succeed in competing. And right now, you've got 4 airlines that occupy 80% of the domestic markets, and we're 5%. And we've had a number of things that we've tried to do to gain scale that have either been blocked by the government or haven't worked our way. And I have some great examples of head scratchers, frankly, in that category. And it makes it more challenging for a smaller carrier to effectively compete. If you think about big companies, they have the advantage of purchasing power. If you've got, if you're buying a big aircraft order book, obviously the cost of those planes is going to be less. If you're buying more, we're smaller, so we buy less. Airport rents and landing fees. If you have a huge operation, you can run those gates more efficiently than an airline that has maybe a smaller number of flights and spread the costs of operating at that airport across a wider base. Loyalty programs. We all have our favorite loyalty programs, and when you can't serve customers in all the destinations that they want to go, they're forced to go outside of your ecosystem and find, another loyalty program to augment what you offer, or, another credit card. And so, with lack of scale on a network, it makes it particularly challenging there. So access, that's another huge area. We're constantly knocking at the door of airport authorities trying to find a way into markets that we think JetBlue can be successful in, and markets where we want to bring our product. And, a lot of times the doors get shut in our face.
How do you compete against scale without having that scale? It's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, it is. I think, we tried to do the Spirit transaction. That didn't work. We tried to do a very deep partnership with American Airlines that involved revenue sharing and schedule coordination. That was blocked. So we're now doing a partnership with United Airlines called Blue Sky. So that's one opportunity to try to get scale with a partner. And then we're going to continue to knock at the door of airport authorities and others to try to force our way in. We're also very active on the Hill, trying to point out the challenges that small carriers have in this environment. And the government needs to pay attention and start looking for opportunities to kind of tilt things our way in areas that they can.
You gave a couple of choice numbers there, 5% and so on. Here's some other numbers. You're the largest carrier, Boston Logan. You're second only to Delta at JFK. These aren't the characteristics of an underdog.
Correct. Yeah, they're not. But when you have a global carrier that you're competing with at JFK or in Boston, we still can't offer all the destinations that a Delta offers in Boston, for example. And when I look at what we did in Boston, we really put Boston on the map in terms of a hub for an airline. And so, our ask of airport authorities and others is to recognize that sometimes you do have to put your finger on the scale for the small guy, because if you don't, then they can't succeed, and it could lead to an environment where you're left with only a legacy carrier, or, a carrier that maybe doesn't offer as good a product or service as JetBlue offers. So I think stopping, taking a minute to look maybe at the long view, which is we have to have a healthy, climate where all carriers can compete, not just the big guys.
Let's reflect briefly on the government shutdown. I know there was some shared frustration around legacy operators maybe being able to be a little more tactical in terms of what they had to cut with their regional fleets in a way that maybe JetBlue and others couldn't. Another shutdown's possibly going to be with us in as little as a month and a half.
Hopefully not.
What is your message to the lawmakers and to the Hill and to everyone else that's got a say in avoiding a potential January 30th?
At the end of the day, we obviously supported that, the FAA and their decision to reduce capacity because we were concerned about a safety impact across the national airspace. I think first and foremost, we've got to fix the national airspace. It can't be political fodder for, situations where, the Democrats and Republicans can't find a path forward. And part of that's got to be air traffic control modernization. We've been at the forefront of this for literally more than a decade, pounding the pavement. Dave Barger, my CEO, 2 CEOs ago, was literally the person who chaired the first Next Gen Advisory Committee. For the most part, nothing's happened. I think this administration is doing a much better job, but I think it first starts with that. But then, as you think about the potential for another shutdown, we were a very big advocate to really apply the rules on an operating carrier basis, so that the legacy carriers can't just go out and cancel the marketing carriers or those smaller carriers that fly under an American or a Delta or a United code, because it's a small aircraft, and when we are forced with canceling a JetBlue flight, a larger number of people are impacted. So, they came up with a formula that they thought was fair. I think I would prefer to see operating carrier be the kind of required cut standard, but, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I think I'm happy we got out of it, and fingers crossed we find a path forward so we're not there again.
You're listening to a special episode of the Airline Weekly Lounge. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue our discussion with Joanna Geraghty right after the break. Hello and welcome back to the Airline Weekly Lounge. Let's continue now with part 2 of our onstage interview with JetBlue CEO Joanna Geraghty, recorded on December 3rd at the Skift Aviation Forum in Fort Worth, Texas.
It's not just in the US where you're being challenged. We had your colleague Marty St. George join us in New York at the Skift Transatlantic Summit in October, and he was expressing some frustration around Lisbon, around Heathrow.
So Lisbon, we continue to knock at the door there. We were given a slot in Lisbon that was completely unworkable, would not have driven what customers wanted in terms of the right arrival time, but also would not have performed from a revenue basis for JetBlue. And the latest turn, as the world turns, is we had applied for a Boston Heathrow remedy slot that we had applied for several years ago, which was actually a remedy slot as part of the American US Airways BA joint venture years ago. United got it the first go around, was unsuccessful in operating that Boston Heathrow slot. So we then applied when they turned it back in, and we've lost again to what I believe is another legacy carrier. And so these decisions in isolation seem perhaps logical. The challenge is when you kind of pull up and look at this from 30,000 feet, they add up. And the more it happens, I think the more challenging it becomes for carriers like a JetBlue or others to really provide that service that we'd like to.
What would you say to the CMA in the UK, the Competition Market Authority, who say, well, hang on, that legacy operator is going to be flying a wide body in there, and you're putting a tiddly little A321?
Completely understand it, and I'd say take the long view, because we've come into these markets and driven competitive change. We have reduced fares, even with a narrow body. We've improved product offerings because others have to match the product offering that we put out there. You can look at Mint as a great example of that. And so if you're only focused on the number of customers you're bringing over the pond, which appears to be sort of the large majority of what they looked at, I understand, but you've got to take a long view here, because if you don't, then you're going to end up with just big guys.
I was going to say, is there a risk that if new entrants like yourself get treated badly time and time again with the crummy slots and with unworkable conditions?
Correct.
That you
it
might
becomes
just
a self-fulfilling prophecy. It just doesn't work in the long run. So, another example is DCA. There was an opportunity to fly an out-of-perimeter slot. There were a couple of out-of-perimeter slots that became available. Out-of-perimeter DCA, obviously, you can move outside of the normal range. We fly one out-of-perimeter slot today, San Juan. It does very well for us. We applied for an out-of-perimeter slot, and guess what? We didn't get it. Guess who did? Legacy carriers, because it was politically driven, because it involved people flying home from DC to their home states. It is what it is. We keep at it.
One place you are heading into is Milan.
Yes, Milan and Barcelona.
Can you get from Boston to Milan on an A321LR in winter?
Yes.
It's the bad winds?
Yes. Well, we're doing summer seasonal for both Milan and Barcelona.
Is that because it's a seasonal route, or is it because it would be too challenging to operate?
It's a seasonal route. It's a seasonal route. We could operate it. We'd obviously have some challenges in the winter, but we've navigated that pretty well. You can put caps on and lids on flights to manage through that. But we're really excited about the offering that JetBlue brings transatlantic for the leisure customer, and the opportunity to really access a first-class product and a great coach experience that I frankly think is better than what they're used to. And seasonal does extremely well. The transatlantic is tough in the wintertime.
Just to be clear, will you be taking a hit on the payload for that Milan flight?
Not in the summer. We shouldn't, yeah. Okay. Maybe a little bit, not much, yeah.
It feels like this is just a long list of frustrations and gripes, but we've got some good news.
We have some good news, yeah.
That we can share.
There's a lot of stuff that, is frustrating, but...
But everyone in the room knows that Skift loves an exclusive, and today is no exception. I'm delighted to say that we can show some of the first visuals for your new JetBlue JFK lounge.
Yes.
Tell us what we're about to see.
So I wish we had photographs, but the photographer's coming on Tuesday to take the photos. So we don't have them in time. And there's still a punch list of items that need to be closed out. But these are the renderings of what the JetBlue lounge at JFK is going to look like. Actually, the ceiling is inspired by the celestial map in Grand Central Station. If you look up and fly through Grand Central. So there's some very cool icons on there that doesn't copy what Grand Central did, but inspired by. So our look here is really trying to find a residential approach to lounges. They're going to be smaller than what our competitors offer. So we have to be more bespoke in what we offer, and also really focus on who can access the lounges. We really don't want long lines out the door. So those with the Premier card, those who are flying transatlantic, and our Mosaic 4s will be able to access the lounges. JFK is the first one. It should be opening in 2 weeks, fingers crossed. And then Boston will open the middle of next year. And it's inspired by a sort of eclectic New York home. Think kind of Art Deco, that genre. And Marty and I have been very involved working with the team on all sorts of touches and cool things. So I'm excited. You see the little photo thing there? I'm excited.
If you need anyone to test the bar, let me know. Yeah, I was going to at the back there, is that a photo booth?
Yeah, I think it looks like it's a photo booth. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know if that's actually going to be ready right out of the box because we kind of pushed open it before the holidays. But yeah, it should be great. And really focusing on that sort of residential feel that carries through to our Mint cabin, particularly transatlantic, where we looked for sort of like nice fabric, softer seating, and making people feel kind of taken care of.
What's the latest timeline around Boston as well? Because
Boston's middle to second half of next year. Yeah. So
what about something in Florida?
So we're looking at it. We have some ideas. We haven't announced anything, but lounges are very, lounges I think are going to be an important part of our strategy. We have a great partner in Barclays that's helping us kind of come up with the vision, and we've all kind of made that step towards premium. JetBlue's been doing it for 10 years with Mint, and we're going to be rolling out our first class product. So I think domestic first, middle to back half of next year on all of our non-Mint aircraft. So we'll have that system wide, and we see it with our customers. I think we're well positioned for premium because we have a more elevated customer experience, the free Wi-Fi, more leg room, great snacks, our crew members really caring. And so I think we can lean into that in a very natural and brand consistent way.
Keep your questions for Joanna coming in. We've got some good ones coming in. I can see those coming through. I'm sure there's a few acronyms that you're not a huge fan of. ATC, yes. AOG?
ATC, AOG.
DOJ.
You know what AOG is? Aircraft on the ground.
DOJ.
DOJ, I know. Well, listen, the last administration, we had some challenges with them. This administration, I will say, particularly on the FAA and the DOT side, I think there's a clear effort to try to get funding in place to fix air traffic control. And we didn't see a lot of progress, if any, in the last administration. So, really focus on how we can support this administration, particularly the Secretary of Transportation and the administrator on fixing air traffic. It is a huge thing. It's immensely fixable. It will take time and money, a lot of it.
When we spoke in New York at the Skift Global Forum last September, we were discussing ATC. Have things got better or worse since last September in broad terms?
Well, we had the shutdown, so that makes everything worse.
ATC specific.
That was driven in large part by ATC. So I'd say they're status quo. The controllers, they do a great job with what they're given, but we've got to fix it. That's everybody I think agrees on that point.
I've got another nasty acronym for you. I'm sorry. Okay. GTF, Geared Turbofan.
Geared Turbofan, yeah, there's a lot of bad ones there.
Halloween's over, but spooky season continues.
Yeah, I think, Pratt & Whitney, a good business partner of ours, and, we're an exclusive Pratt shop now. We have the V2500 engines, and then we have the Geared Turbofan engines, and we have a long-standing relationship with them in the past and moving into the future. We've seen nice improvements on the number of AOG, aircraft on the ground, due to the GTF, Pratt & Whitney. And
it's the Aviation Forum. We can talk
literally do an entire sentence in acronyms, I think. So we've seen nice improvements there. So we expect, less than 10 aircraft on the ground due to the Pratt & Whitney engine situation. And we had a much higher projection. So, in a better place.
Have we reached the high watermark?
I am hopeful JetBlue has. I can't speak for others, but I'm hopeful JetBlue has.
Okay. You said you were, quote, optimistic about 2026 being JetBlue's year. What fills you with that optimism?
Gosh, well, 2025 wasn't. So I'm being optimistic and looking forward. No, we have a wonderful strategy called Jet Forward. And if you actually kind of remove some of the underlying macroeconomic conditions that I think the industry as a whole faced this year, we've got a lot of initiatives that are really working. And we can see it because we can isolate out their performance separate from the industry kind of step back this year. So our operational performance, we made a huge investment in really improving our on-time performance. It's core to our business and what we have to deliver to our customers. We're now back at the top with Net Promoter Score. I was telling Gordon, I have the pleasure of flying 3 competitors, different ones, over the last 2 days. So I get to do all that market research, and I'm really proud of the product we offer. We have a fantastic product, and our Net Promoter Scores are showing that, and customers are telling us that. So very very pleased with the performance there. On the revenue side, a whole series of revenue initiatives that are really coming into their own, whether it's our Even More Space as a Cabin program, whether it's our preferred seating, lounges, our loyalty program. We launched a Premier card this year. Then we have First Class coming in 2026. We've got a ton of changes around the network. We repositioned 20% of our network over the last year or so, and that's in ramp phase. And some exciting destinations that we've announced over the last couple of months, a couple more to come. And then a real big focus on just making sure our costs are in check, because that is equally important. And that's something that we control. And so if you're an airport authority here, we're going to come to you and ask for help because we do need to keep our costs in check there. So we've got a lot on the initiative front, and pleased with what we're seeing and seeing that ramp into 26. Demand looks good. So yeah.
As promised, some questions from the room. Here we go. And I know you were outspoken about this at IATA in Delhi. You said it's not going to end up as a merger, but I've got to ask it. Where does a JetBlue United relationship ultimately end up?
Yeah, so our relationship is great. We're still in the very early innings of launching Blue Sky. I don't think it's going to ultimately end up where people speculate. At the end of the day, we're focused on number one, launching interline sales on United.com beginning of next year. They will sell their flights on JetBlue.com. We just announced Earn and Burn, so reciprocity with the loyalty programs. We will be rolling out the loyalty benefits next year, and then Paisly, JetBlue Travel Products. We're going to be their non-flight ancillary platform. So a lot of work is going into supporting that right now, and that'll launch middle-ish of next year, back half. So we've got a lot of work to do, and excited because it does help with our scale issue, and it helps customers really use TrueBlue in a more meaningful way. So a lot of synergies there.
But it doesn't feel like the very end of this journey. This is very much a stepping stone maybe to something else? No,
I mean, at the end of the day, the United partnership is the Blue Sky partnership, and that's what it is. We're very much focused on our organic plan. We have a lot of balls in the air that we need to execute to, and we want people to fly us and recognize how important it is to support carriers like JetBlue and other smaller airlines because of the impact it has on the broader competitive landscape.
A couple of quick ones before we wrap up, and I know it's lunchtime as well. And Skift is famous for its food. I know JetBlue, you like your food on board. Skift conferences are great for food as well. So won't keep the audience any longer than we have to. What US markets are you having a hard time getting into?
US markets. So US is better. It's been largely around, LA is tricky. We have a bunch of flying out of LA. There's limitations on LAX, limitations on gate access. There's a lot of construction there. So that's been particularly frustrating for us. I wish we had a better sort of path there, and I wish we had better facilities and whatnot. We're in sort of middle of construction things. We just moved recently. So that's probably the one that can be frustrating. Years ago, San Francisco was challenging, but I think we found a path there and much better. It took us a long time to get into DCA. We're there now. The challenge is once you get there, it's got to work. And the scale piece does become a challenge. Like if you look at Mexico City, we were very vocal at trying to get a path into Mexico City. And then we finally got our slot there, and it wasn't a great time. The slot wasn't timed well, and we just couldn't make it work given the breadth of the Delta Aeromexico kind of JV down there. And so it tends to be largely international where we're really challenged.
One last one. One area that's going to define the industry more than any other in 2026.
2026. I think premium continues to be the area. I mean, if you look at, some of what our competitors are doing, it's leaning into that area. So I'd say that's probably, and hopefully air traffic control.
Joanna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
And that brings us to the end of this special episode of the Airline Weekly Lounge. If you're a Skift or Airline Weekly subscriber, check out our archives for more full-length insights from the Skift Aviation Forum. And if you'd like to learn more about our upcoming events, check out live.skift.com. Thanks as always to our producers, Monica and Will, and wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening, happy holidays, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, please make sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or leave us a positive review. This really helps us get the word out about the Airline Weekly Lounge, so we can continue to bring you this podcast every week, absolutely free of charge. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Skift channel and hit the notification bell to find out whenever a new video drops.